We are only a couple of weeks away from the start of the 2019 NFL Draft. It feels like it's been a long journey to draft day, but for those in the talent evaluation field, it might not feel long enough. Of course, the Cowboys likely won't have their pick of the board until the second round, when they come on the clock 58th overall. Based on their pre-draft visitors list, they clearly have certain positions they'd like to target in that second round, but the question really will be about who is available when it's their turn to pick. Here are 3 players that should be available when Dallas is on the clock for the first time in 2019 that they will likely consider heavily. 1. Thornhill, safety. Virginia Cowboys draft target, Virginia safety 1 Thornhill. If it feels like you keep seeing the same names on these types of lists, it's for a good reason. The Cowboys will likely look to add a safety within their first 2 selections, and Virginia's 1 Thornhill fits what they could be looking for. Thornhill tested out of this world at the Combine, putting him right on the top of many fans' draft targets. He actually tested relatively similar to current Cowboy Byron Jones, indicating he could be even more attractive to Dallas than to other teams. Then again, when someone tests like Thornhill did, they'll raise eyebrows all across the league. With his rare athletic attributes and history playing at both cornerback and free safety, Thornhill could be Chris Richards' pet cat on draft day. Christian Miller, edge. Alabama. Christian Miller is a personal favorite of mine in this edge class, and he has a real shot of being there when the Cowboys pick at 58. Sure, Dallas had just signed DeMarcus Lawrence to a contract extension and trade for Robert Quinn, but you can never have enough quality pass rushers. Drafting Miller would add another talented rusher to the Cowboys' defensive front rotation, and give them some flexibility on the edge in terms of roster building moving forward. Outside of Lawrence and Quinn, the Cowboys' defensive end situation is still in flux, with Taco Charlton and Durance Armstrong functioning as unknowns at this point. Of course, a rookie would also be an unknown, but Christian Miller would be a damn talented unknown, with a high ceiling as a pass rusher. L.J. Collier, DL, TCU's L.J. Collier is a Rod Marinelli defensive lineman. A high-energy and physical defender with a never-say-die attitude, Collier would be a solid chess piece for Marinelli to utilize across the defensive line. Though not really athletic enough to rush on the edge full-time in the NFL, and not really big enough to make his living on the interior all game long, Collier would fit nicely as a flexible tweener of sorts in the defensive line rotation. I could see Collier working as a nickel rusher at 3 technique, as well as a run defender at defensive end on early downs for the Cowboys while he develops his skills as a pass rusher. Collier doesn't have the upside as a rusher that someone like Christian Miller has, but he would fill a much different role with this defense. The clock is ticking and the 2019 NFL Draft is almost upon us. We are merely weeks away of the big event and things are just now starting to heat up. With private workouts, pro days, and pre-draft visitors getting announced, leaked from teams around the NFL, we're getting a pretty good idea of the players and positions particular teams are targeting. This includes the Dallas Cowboys. This time of year is really exciting because everybody has their opinion as to which player their team should draft and where, including myself. We all have our favorite prospects, our pet cats, but unless you're one of the lucky few to be a part of the Dallas Cowboys scouting department, you are probably just throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. I know I'm guilty. Today, I'm going to throw a little bit of spaghetti against the wall in the hopes that one of my pet cats ends up with the Cowboys come draft day. I decided to choose just one player from each position who I believe would make nice additions to the Dallas Cowboys. North Dakota State QB Easton Stick, AP photo, Charlie Niebergall, quarterback. The Dallas Cowboys probably aren't in the market for another quarterback behind Dak Prescott, but if they are, former North Dakota State QB Easton Stick is an intriguing mid to late round option. He has similar mobility as Prescott, which allows him to make plays both inside and outside the pocket. The Cowboys don't have that kind of mobile QB behind Prescott and Cooper rusher Mike White, which means the offense would change a little if they had to play. It wouldn't with Stick. Running back. There are a lot of intriguing running backs in this year's draft class, but Bruce Anderson out of North Dakota State is one of my favorites for the Dallas Cowboys. I think he's a complete three-down back who can be a real weapon in the passing game. He also brings added value on special teams as a kick returner. He could be the lightning to Zeke's thunder. Wide receiver. If you have followed any of my previous work, then you already know I'm a huge Mecole Hardman fan. He is my favorite WR in the entire 2019 draft class, and I love what he would bring to the Dallas Cowboys. He is a deep threat, can play inside or outside WR, kick and punt returner, gadget player, gunner on special teams, and could be an emergency cornerback if needed. What's not to like? My Mecole Hardman scouting report. Tight end. This is a good year to need a tight end, and although there are a lot of intriguing options on day 1 and day 2, I really like former LSU Tay Foster Moreau as a day 3 target. On paper he measures up in tests similar to Jason Witten, and he has the same kind of blue-collar mentality. Why not draft a player who could be Witten's clone to become his successor? Center, guard. The Dallas Cowboys are pretty set along the offensive line, but if they're looking for a versatile interior player who can play guard or center, then they should look no further than Elgton Jenkins out of Mississippi State. He played every position on their OL, but projects better as interior player in the NFL. Checks all of the boxes to be an early starter in the NFL as a rookie. Offensive tackle. With Tyron Smith's continued health problems and with Leo Collins in the last year of his contract, the Dallas Cowboys could be in the market for another offensive tackle. If they are, Bobby Evans out of Oklahoma is the guy the first like. He played on both the right and left side for the Sooners and could do the same in the NFL. Alabama. Christian Miller. Defensive end. If not for some unfortunate injuries and being buried on the depth chart during his time at Alabama, we'd all be hearing a lot more about Christian Miller. He was one of the Cowboys' 30 pre-draft visitors and someone I think could be a future starter on the right side opposite DeMarcus Lawrence. He has the size, length, and athletic ability they look for in their day and the skill set to match. Defensive tackle. The Dallas Cowboys will definitely add a defensive tackle at some point in the draft, and I'm really hoping that player is Tristan Hill. He is a big-bodied DT who has a quick first step that allows him to be disruptive in both the running and passing game. He is another pre-draft visitor and has also worked out for Rod Marinelli. I think he would be a great 3-tech with the Cowboys. My scouting report on Tristan Hill. Linebacker. With Jalen Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, Sean Lee, and Joe Thomas, the Cowboys have solid group of linebackers, but they'll add a few more bodies to the mix with a draft pick or an undrafted player. If they draft a LB, Drew Tranquill out of Notre Dame is someone I really like. He's somehow still flying under the radar a little, but he's one of the more athletic and productive LBs in the draft class. Cornerback. Let me introduce you to the Washington cornerback not named Byron Murphy, Jordan Miller. He has the size, length Chris Richard looks for in his CBs and excels at playing press man in bump and run coverage. He needs to get in the weight room and add some muscle to his frame before he's ready to contribute, but he wouldn't play right away with the Cowboys anyway. He is a late-round developmental project with starting potential in year 2. Safety. If I had to choose one safety I'd love to see drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, it would be Darnell Savage Jr. out of Maryland. He is a converted cornerback who has found his home at safety. He is capable of playing around with the line of scrimmage as a box safety or being that single high free safety in the NFL. He would pair nicely with Xavier Woods and give the Cowboys 2 interchangeable safeties. John Williams. Scouting report on Darnell Savage Jr. Who are your pet cats for the Dallas Cowboys in the 2019 NFL Draft? When it comes to the Dallas Cowboys and their draft strategy, knowing the prospects they bring in for their allotted 30 pre-draft visits is a really good indicator of the direction they will go come draft day. Over the past several years they've targeted these players in the draft, which is why this year I decided to keep a pre-draft visitor tracker for the Cowboys. So far, but been able to confirm 27 of the possible 30 Cowboys pre-draft visitors, and I think it's safe to say Dallas may have shown their hand a little as to how their 2019 NFL draft strategy may play out. It takes a little reading between the lines and a little creative thinking, but because of the players they brought in, I can confidently guesstimate their thought process for the first 3 rounds. Let's take a look. Dallas Cowboys targeting safety at 58. Virginia S1 Thornhill. The Dallas Cowboys haven't been shy about showing their interest in several of the safety prospects in this year's draft class. I have been able to confirm 6 so far they had brought in as pre-draft visitors, and at least 4 of those could be in play for the Cowboys with their second-round pick at 58th overall. Taylor Rep, Washington; Jonathan Abram, Mississippi State; Juan Thornhill, Virginia; and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Florida. Now, there's no way of knowing if any of these safety prospects will still be available when the Cowboys are on the clock at 58, but this would indicate they are hoping that is the case if you read between the lines. I personally think there is a really good chance at least one, if not all 4, of the safeties will still be on the board for Dallas. I actually prefer Thornhill or Gardner-Johnson because I believe they are more versatile players, but would be just as happy if Rapp or Abram ends up being the pick. Looking at dynamic wide receivers at 90. Georgia WR Mecole Hardman, Kim Clement, USA Today Sports. On paper it looks like the Dallas Cowboys have a logjam at wide receiver, but outside of Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and maybe Randall Cobb, they are all basically unknown and unproven. That's why I wasn't completely surprised to see the Cowboys add 4 WRs to their allotted 30 pre-draft visitors: Deebo Samuel, South Carolina; Mecole Hardman, Georgia; Emmanuel Hall, Missouri; and John Via Johnson, Toledo. Samuel, Hardman, and Hall could slide and be in play for Dallas at 90th overall in the 3rd round. I am completely on board with drafting another WR with the Cowboys' 3rd round selection. Having said that though, it needs to be a player who brings something a little different to what is currently on the roster, and I think Samuel, Hardman, and Hall definitely fit into that criteria. Each one of these receivers are dynamic in space and could seriously challenge for a large amount of playing time as rookies, especially when you take into consideration Cobb's recent injury history. Pencil in defensive tackle in the 4th round. Central Florida DT Tristan Hill. We would all probably like to see the Dallas Cowboys address the defensive tackle position earlier than this, but unfortunately there doesn't seem to be a lot of value at the position in the 2nd or 3rd round when the Cowboys are on the clock. The 4th round seems to be where the best value is for the Cowboys to add more DT depth, especially if you take a look at their pre-draft visitors at the position. 4 of the Dallas Cowboys' 30 pre-draft visitors are defensive tackles, and each of them could be in play still for them in the 4th round. Gerald Willis 3, Miami; Tristan Hill, Central Florida; Kingsley Keke, Texas A. They have several DTs on the roster right now on 1-year contracts and definitely need to address a position at some point. The 4th round looks to be where the value lies unless one of the top prospects somehow slides to them at 58. Do you think the Dallas Cowboys pre-draft visitors revealed their draft strategy? While the Cowboys spent free agency filling some of their roster's biggest holes before the NFL draft, they will almost certainly go into draft day needing to find Ezekiel Elliott a backup running back. Considering they only have 2 picks in the top 100, spending one of them on a running back who will likely only play sparingly isn't the best roster-building idea. Instead, the Cowboys should look in the 4th round and beyond for that complimentary running back. The 2019 running back class is one without stars, but is also one with quality depth. The Cowboys should be able to find themselves a receiving back on day 3 of the draft, and they won't have to look far to find it. Oklahoma's Rodney Anderson could be just the player their offense needs to fill this hole. Cowboys draft target, Oklahoma Sooners RB Rodney Anderson. Anderson has sort of flown under the radar throughout the draft process, mostly due to the season-ending ACL tear he suffered in 2018. But any hype around Anderson is justified, as he will be an immediate contributor, pending his health, to whichever team decides to draft him. The comparison which is constantly thrown out for Rodney Anderson is Jay Ajayi, with his combination of acceleration in the open field and power through the tight spaces. I like this comparison for Anderson, and like Ajayi in Philadelphia, Anderson will be at his best if used in a more specialized role, rather than as an every-down back. At 6 feet, 1 inch and 219 pounds, Anderson clearly has the build of an every-down back, but he needs to improve in pass protection and is a route runner to be one in the NFL. Luckily for the Cowboys, this is the exact role they'd need Rodney Anderson to fill. Obviously Elliott is going to shoulder the majority of the load at running back, but this volume of his touches likely isn't sustainable going forward. Dallas has to find a way to get him more rest to not only preserve his body long-term, but also to keep him fresher than the defense late in games. The Cowboys want to run the ball heavily with Elliott, but getting a back like Anderson that they can use spell him throughout the game as both a runner and receiver would help this offense immensely.